Hey there folks, welcome back. We are out here with the GSX and we've replaced our cooling system components pretty much as far as we can go. And the other day I did a test on this thing and we have a leak in our head gasket. So we got a new Velcro head gasket sitting here. We've also got OEM head studs right now, but we do have the what are they, the ARP, I think they were L19s, or I can't remember exactly, but we got the ARP head studs. They're on their way. They're about 12 days out, so we're going to go through this thing today. We're going to disassemble it. We're going to take the timing system all apart, remove it all, take off the exhaust, the intake manifold, everything associated with the cylinder head, drain the coolant, you know the deal. And we are also replacing our timing system and our balance shaft belts with a ExtremePSI.com Gates water pump with the gasket and the O-ring. They also sent me a timing belt, new tensioners, new pulleys, and like I said, the Gates water pump itself. So I'm going to get all the special timing tools out here that I've got, which I definitely advise you guys to pick up. They have a $60 sale right now. You get the little rod that goes into the back to push tension on the pulley. You get the little I can't remember the name of it. It's the two-prong bit that goes into the idler tensioner pulley on the side of the timing belt there. It comes with that. It comes with a little cam lock. It comes with everything you need, and it was $60 as opposed to buying each thing individually and spending over $100 on it. You can get it at ExtremePSI.com, and they'll send it to you relatively quick. My package I ordered 2 days ago, and it's supposed to be here today. So we're going to start the job and wait for it all to show up, and in the meantime we're going to get this all torn apart. So if you guys saw the valve stem seal, the valve seal job that we did on this a while ago over the winter, it's relatively the same process, except for we're not going to remove the cams. We're going to leave those in. What we're going to start to do is disassemble everything off the top end. We're going to go from the throttle body, get the wiring harness, get the intake manifold, get the exhaust manifold free, drain the antifreeze, take off the covers on the timing side. That motor mount's got to come out. All the accessory pulleys and belts have to come out. And we're going to get this thing basically down to a bare cylinder head, get it pulled off, and replace our gasket first, and then all new timing components. So it's going to be a hell of a time. Super excited. Not really, but at the same time, I'm glad we're doing it because it needed it. It's got 238,000 miles on the head gasket that's in it. It is the original one. All my paperwork does not show a head gasket job ever being done. So for an OEM Mitsubishi head gasket, I'd say 238,000 miles, $250,000. That's pretty damn good. We're just peeking around $250,000, but we're gonna get that water pump out here. I've got today and tomorrow to do this. I'm probably not going to stop and film every single nut and bolt that I take out, unfortunately. There's a great video though on YouTube of how to do a 4G63 head gasket. I'll link that guy's channel and the video in the description. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, so I apologize, but that'll be down in the video description. Also, the link to the head gasket for the 7-bolt 4G. I'll have the Velcro part number, the head stud part number, the ARP head stud part number, and the timing belt and timing component kits that I picked up from Extreme PSI will all be down in the description down there. So click them if you need them. Great stuff at ExtremePSI.com. Can't say anything better. Those guys are the top tier shippers right now as far as DSM parts go, and they've always gotten me what I needed. So anyways, I'm gonna get started on this. I'm gonna stick you guys off to the side for the majority of these teardowns, but it's pretty basic. If you have a service manual, you can get all this stuff knocked out yourself. It's the timing part is probably the most difficult part, and the block and head preparation to get the new head gasket on. So if you're not confident in doing it yourself, have a mechanic do it. Have a buddy come over and help you. Maybe two of you can do it. But anyway, I'm going to get this going. I'm going to stick you guys out to the side, start tearing this thing apart, and I will be back in a minute. So first things first, we got the car up in the air. We got the jacks under it, jack stands under it. We've also got a board on another jack supporting the oil pan because we have to take off this motor mount right here. We're going to pull that wheel liner out. That's held in with a couple of bolts and a couple of those plastic push rivets right there. We're going to get that yanked out. Then we're going to start disassembling all of our accessories on this side. And once we're done with the accessories, we're going to start working on getting all of the head stuff pulled. Alright guys, let's do this. Okay guys, so we've got the motor mount out. We've got all the timing cover stuff off, the pulleys and the belts for all the accessories. And we've also got the balancer pulled off down here. I guess we're just gonna start taking stuff apart piece by piece. This is as far as I'm gonna go right now until my timing components get here. I wanna be able to just take one thing off and replace it at the same time. So we'll pull the belt, we'll pull the water pump, all that fun stuff off. I've got to take off that bracket on the side of the alternator, it looks like, to get to the water pump, which is that silver thing right there is our water pump. I'm going to lock the cam gears together so that they're both, that's pointed straight up, that's pointed straight up, and the hashes are matching right here. And actually I have a little special tool that does go right inside of there, which I'll show you real quick. I'm sure most of you guys have done this, have seen one of these. So when this is perfectly lined up, your little tool should slide right in the middle there. Let's see here. I might have to do a little finessing to get her in there square. Oh, damn it, she's so close. She's so close. Oh yeah, I can't do this one-handed. But anyway, give me a second, I'm gonna throw this in there, I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, there we go. So I'm gonna end up zip tying this together so that the cams stay in phase correctly. Then we're gonna pull the valve cover off to get to the head studs. But right now, I've got my little containers out here. This has got my timing cover bolts in it. I'm gonna start labeling all the injectors, 1, 2, 3, 4. The vacuum hoses I'm gonna label just to keep everything, on the know where I need it to be, and I don't miss anything. It's gonna have bright yellow tape on it. There's a couple more plugs that I have to do. I have to disconnect the thermostat housing over here, the head oil feed line. I'm thinking just gonna take the exhaust manifold to turbo bolts out. I can get to those a lot easier. There's a head right here, and then the two on the front. We'll just leave the exhaust manifold and the intake manifold on, and we'll try to lift this whole thing up in one big piece. So I'm gonna get cracking on disconnecting all this stuff, and I'll be back in a few more minutes to show you guys my progress. Alright guys, now I got to apologize that I'm not really recording a whole hell of a lot of this, but last time I had to do a head gasket on one of these cars, I had my Master Tech buddy with me, and he was great to have on my side. I am not a Master Tech. He was, and it made things a lot easier. But so far, by myself, this is where we stand. I have tagged and labeled all the harnesses and plugs in the back to make sure I don't miss one. I've gotten the thermostat components off, and the thermostat housing is pulled. We've got the radiator hoses out, coolant drained. I couldn't get the fourth bolt off of my FP manifold right here. So what I ended up doing was going for the head studs, or not the head studs, the manifold studs, and pulling all those nuts back off again. I've got that creeped forward. I got the bolt that holds the exhaust to the block out so I can slide this whole system out and forward. I'm going to replace the ring, the seal on the water pipe going over to the thermostat housing just because. Clean some of that stuff off here. All the pulleys and stuff are off on the timing side. Timing cover's off. It's basically ready. I got to take one more bracket off still to get to the bolts for the water pump once I get the belt off. But I've got everything in time now. Piston number 1 is at top dead center. I've got the fuel rail disconnected. I put the bolts back in it back here. I've got to take out the PCV. I've got to pull the rest of the harness back and out of the way. And then I'm going to go through all the vacuum lines and the ground straps, get all those undone. I have to disconnect the bolts and the bracket on the intake manifold side. Whew. Then we're going to take the head off of this thing. The valve cover bolts are also out. It's just sitting over top of it right now. Spark plugs are still in each one of the holes. Those will come out soon. And I'll show you what I've been doing to try to keep myself sane and organized. This is what I did when I pulled everything apart to do the valve seals. I try to keep the hardware together. That's the tensioner for the air conditioning. That's the balancer, harmonic balancer. That right there is the water pump pulley, and underneath that is the pulley that rides on for I think that's the power steering on the backside. I can't remember, but I'll put it back together. We got a motor mount there. Got all our belts sitting around the brakes. In the trunk, we have our upper intercooler piping with our MAF sensor. Our coolant jug is all cleaned out. Battery bracket, our battery is sitting here. My freshly painted exhaust manifold heat shield. And we have our plug wires and timing cover. And the rat hose. And an intake. Alright, so yeah, there's everything. So I'm trying to keep it all together. I'm trying to keep it all in some sort of organized fashion. I still have another organizing container there for some other stuff. I got one more upstairs I'm probably going to end up bringing out. And yeah, cams are locked, so those won't roll. Once I take the head off, I'm going to zip tie that right there together so that the cams don't move out of phase or anything like that. Yeah, it's been fun. We're very close to being ready to pull this thing off the engine, or off of the block. And then I can get this new head gasket thrown in there. So what I plan on doing is finishing up disassembly, cleaning and prepping both of the surfaces of the head and the block and the piston faces. I have to buy a new water pump belt. I did find that my water pump belt that's a year and a half, not even, it's like 10 months old, decided to split right up the middle, so that could have been part of the cause of my overheating issue. I got to check the flatness of the cylinder head and the deck of the block, make sure that they're all square. I'm hoping that I don't have to do any machining, but I do have a guy on call if I do have to send it off to be decked. Not the block, I can get the head done in a couple of hours. There's a nice shop up here at Napa. They have a machine shop out back. It's called Weller's. Those guys are fantastic. They've done a ton of work for me with customers, machine work, a couple of jobs honing some stuff. They're very nice guys. So I'm going to get back at this. I want to get this head gasket done, get the head back on the car tonight, so that hopefully my Extreme PSI package shows up. It's supposed to be here by the end of the day. I just want to have the majority of this stuff knocked out and be ready to start on water pump timing and reassembly of all these brackets, bolts, plugs, vacuum lines, all that fun stuff. So I'm going to get cracking on it, guys, and yeah, we'll see how she goes. It's going to be fun. Alright, guys, we have gotten pretty far in the last half hour. I've got all the wiring harness pulled off to the side here. I got the intake manifold, the stay it's called, the bracket on the back side of the manifold that holds it down to the block or someplace along that lines. I think it's the block it bolts down to. There's two bolts that are directly underneath that go straight up, 14 mils, got them the hell out of there. Might put one back, might put both back, might put none back, who the hell knows. Everything is labeled so far. I'm just going on through as fast as I can get this done, and I just noticed something. Anybody else have a white and 3 yellows, or a silver and 3 yellows on their coil packs? Those look interesting, but I think everything is free. My package from Extreme PSI just showed up. I'm going to mark all my timing stuff on this side, and then we're just going to go ahead and snip that belt and get it the hell out of there. I'm going to zip tie the cam lock tool so my cams don't move at all. We're going to pull this valve cover off and start pulling some head studs, and hopefully we can get this head pulled off and get this cleaned up, get the new gasket in, put the head back on, and start putting some of this mess back together before we get onto the water pump. So I'm going to get after it, and I will give you guys an update here again shortly. So we are at the point where the timing belt's off. All the head studs are out in the correct sequence. You do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I believe. Cross sequence. You get it. They're all out. They're sitting over there. We're getting ready to pull this head off. The intake manifold is attached still. The exhaust is off. And I'm hoping that that gives us enough leverage to get this puppy off of here. I'm going to actually have my girlfriend come over and give me a hand in a second. We're going to get this yanked off. I got to get something set up on the ground so it doesn't sit on the ground itself. I don't want it to sit on asphalt, but once that's up, I can start cleaning and get the new one ready to go on. So we'll be back in just a second. Okay, guys, we got the head pulled off. She's sitting over here on the ground on a cardboard box, double stacked, give it a nice cushion. There's the old head gasket. Yeah, it was bad. There was leaks happening for sure. The cylinders look great. The crosshatch is still in there. Everything looks clean. The pistons look decent. Eventually we're going to upgrade those bad boys, but unfortunately it's not today. So I'm going to start cleaning. This is the surface after the gasket has been removed. It's filthy. So I'm going to get this nice and clean again. I'm going to try to clean off that little bit of rust in the back ears. I'm going to use a plastic bristle brush, and a razor blade. Try to scrape all that scum off, get it nice and clean again. Then I'm going to go over, and while I'm at it, everything's pulled apart. Figure what the hell, we'll take the bracket for the alternator off, and we'll swap our water pump. It's right there. That'll be easier to get to now. I can get to the top bolts real easy right here over the power steering hose. We'll get the new one on. I'll show you guys all the new parts, and then we will move on to reassembly. It's going to be fun. Good morning, everybody. It is day number 2. We are here in the morning, and we are about ready to start up our cleaning process here. And yeah, we're gonna finish scrubbing off these piston tops. I rolled the engine over a few times. I left it soaking with some PB Blaster on each one of the tops here. It looks like it's done its job. The top of the cylinders need to get cleaned out just a little bit. There's a little bit of scum there right at the top edge. But other than that, they're in great condition. I haven't seen any real issues anywhere. You can still see the crosshatch on a lot of spots. The only place I did see some markings was right there, but honestly, there's no groove in it. It's still smooth. My fingernail doesn't catch on anything. I think it's just a little bit of wear mark from 238,000 miles with these pistons. So the seal was good on them beforehand. Compression was great beforehand. We just pushed a little bit of a head gasket, so I'm not too worried about it right now. And eventually we're going to pull this head back off and throw some new pistons and rods and bearings in it and rehone those cylinders. But for now, they're still in great shape. There's no noise coming when you crank it over. It's basically just dirty. So we're going to get that little bit of carbon out of the top edge of the cylinder. I'm going to use some extremely fine sandpaper and then blast everything out real well. I'm going to stuff rags down in each one of the cylinders before I do that so no grit gets down in anything. Then I got to sand down the top of this block just a little bit. I'm going to use probably some green scrubbies or some emery cloth to just finish this up, and some plastic bristle brushes on a drill to clean up the rest of the crap that's on top there. I'm going to get it all nice and wiped down with some more PB Blaster, clean off both surfaces really nice with brake clean, and then we're going to drop the oil once we get everything put back together, put some fresh oil in it, and fire her up. So I'm going to get started on this. I got to clean the bottom of the cylinder head off, and once the cylinder head's cleaned off and this mating surface is cleaned, we're going to do the head gasket, throw the head back on, and then we're going to start work on our water pump timing and balance shaft belts. And we can hopefully get this thing all finished up today and put back together. If not, I'll be back here tomorrow morning to finish tightening the last couple of bolts up. But so far things are going extremely smooth, and for not doing one of these in a long time, I'd say it's not that bad. It's just a lot of stuff to take apart. So as long as you're confident in being able to put things back together, and as you all know, I'm shooting a video of some of this and taking photos just in case. Have a Haynes manual handy, take some pictures, mark some stuff, label your wiring harness, and you should be fine. Well, I guess I'm just going to get after this, guys, and we do have some new head bolts. Like I said, I think I showed them already. So these ones are going to go in the bin, and we're going to start putting this stuff back together once cleaning is finished. So see you in a few. Alright, gentlemen, I've got this thing as cleaned off as I can get it. There was some rust on those ears that stick out of the back of the head gasket and in the front. I took some 1000 grit sandpaper and lightly sloughed that off. Not that it matters, it doesn't really touch the sealing surface, but I wiped all the cylinders out. The top 1/4 inch had some, around the rim of the upper part of the piston, or the cylinder, had some carbon buildup on it, and I very carefully got that off. So everything is nice and smooth. The crosshatch is showing, everything is wiped down. I put assembly lube around the rings on the pistons and rolled the cylinders, rolled the engine over about 5-6 times, and collected any of the carbon that had dropped into the rings, and all of them are nice and clean. I blasted them out with some air and some brake cleaner, don't tell. But everything's now covered and coated in assembly lube. It's all ready to roll there. I've got to wipe the sealing surface off with some brake parts cleaner very carefully. There. All I got to do is take out one pulley and the alternator bracket, and I should be able to get that bad boy right on out of there. So I'm going to swap that now, get that on, and then we're going to move to putting on the new head gasket, reinstalling the head, and then doing all of our timing balance shaft stuff. Then we got to put it all back together. So, yeah. Alright guys, so after, I don't know, an hour or so of messing around with stuff and getting things taken care of, we've ended up pulling off our old tensioner. This is our timing belt tensioner. I got the old balance shaft belt tensioner off. I've got the old balance shaft belt here, which honestly wasn't in too terrible condition at all. It looks pretty damn good. And our old water pump. And this thing, it's got no shaft play, but there was something going on in it where it was scratching the wall. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Let me see if I can focus on it. There you go. There's some grinding marks right there. It looks like this water pump had been catching on the wall on the inside here. And also our old timing belt tensioner is out. This is the one that I took off and reused the last time I was in the timing side of everything. Oh, of course, and our O-ring, which is nice and swollen and super, super soft. That goes on your water pipe. Alright, let me get back over to this big thing here. So far, we've got everything put back on as far as the water pump goes. That's all bolted in with a fresh gasket. A light layer of RTV around to hold the gasket in place. This bracket right here for the alternator actually fits perfectly when the alternator is all the way laying down forward, right in the cup on the front face of the water pump outlet there. There's a plug on one end and an opening on the inside for the water pipe. And that rod actually was pressing right in the end of it because I wasn't paying attention when I put it on the first time. So I had to loosen the bolts back and pop that out. But if you're careful when you're doing your balance shafts, you can take the pulley off, you can take your crank position sensor off, and you can rotate the engine in a clockwise pattern so you don't got to pull the gear and the plate on the back off. You can actually feed that belt in and around it. But that wasn't too terrible of a job to do, so I'm pretty sure you guys will be able to figure that one out yourselves. Now onto the coup de grace, so to speak. We have our new timing belts over here. We've also got a brand new tensioner tool, or well, this is for putting pressure against the arm in the back. We're not going to really need that, I don't believe. This is the tool that we want for the timing belt tensioner pulley. I'll show you guys what it does here. When you get your bolt in, you have to put pressure against the belt by rotating this offset pulley towards it. So these two little nubs actually fit directly inside of the pulley here. And then you get yourself a 10mm and you can rotate this forward to put tension against that belt before you pull the grenade pin out of the tensioner, I guess. I don't know. But you can get pressure on it like this, tighten the bolt down, and then rotate the engine over 4 or 5 times. Make sure your timing marks line back up after that. And if everything's square, you'll pull your grenade pin out. So this little tool right here, it was sold out everywhere I looked for it. I was almost going to make one. Have the welder here and some metal, but it's here now, so that's all that matters. Oh, and it also came with another one of these cam lock tools, which I don't really need, but I've got now. And the only reason I ended up ordering a second one of the rods for compressing the pulley is I don't know where I can't find the other one right now, but oh, there it is. The other one is right here. And the last time I used it, it got stuck in the access hole in the back and actually bent. Just the tip got bent, and I feel like that was my own dumb fault. I must have tightened it down and not paid attention and tried to tighten it again, but once this gets stuck in there, good luck getting it out. It was an absolute pain in the butt, but we're gonna, I don't know, we're gonna hold on to this one just in case. Still may be able to use it. If I can, I'll straighten it back out, I guess. But anyway, that's the update. That's where we're at. Now I think after all that stuff is done, well, since it is done, that we're actually gonna go ahead and start cleaning the bottom of the cylinder head off. The pistons and everything is still clean. I covered them up with a little towel there to make sure they didn't get anything in them. And the last thing that I have to do here is just re-wipe down the face of this block with some brake parts cleaner and a rag before we put the new gasket on and set the head back on and start reconnecting everything. So yeah, it's also important to make sure once you put your balance shaft belt on, the timing mark has to be lined up on the gear for the balance shaft, and the timing has to be lined up for the crank pulley. So once you get that on and you get it tensioned, rotate the engine over a couple of times to verify that everything is on correct. You're not off one tooth, because if you're off one tooth, that can be the end of your motor. So here is the cylinder head. There was a hell of a lot of buildup on the exhaust valves, but I took care of all that as best I could with a very small rotary tool, and I was extremely careful so I didn't end up hitting any of the seats, but I just went across them and cleaned off the faces of them a little bit. Nothing major. That's all smooth. I checked that. That's all nice and flat. The block is all nice and flat. I don't need to send this bad boy to get machined, thank God. I think that's probably because I caught this early. But anyway, I'm going to come back through here. I'm going to wipe this face down one more time with some brake parts cleaner. Make sure that, I think I'm at TDC right now, and I've got my cam locks on my cylinder head. Yes, it's sitting on some cardboard and a soft pillow on the cam side just to make sure. I'm going to double check that, make sure there's nothing else on it. I want to look inside of it, make sure there's nothing inside of it at all. And what I'm going to do next is wipe off all the stuff on the side where all the coolant stuff hooks up to, the thermostat housing and all that, clean off the old RTV. And once I'm at top dead center and I have both of these wiped down, I'm going to go ahead and slap my new gasket on the dowel pins, and I'm going to try to set my head back on and start putting everything back together. Still quite a lot. I got to yank that battery back out of here. Fun fact, if you're going to do this job and it's going to take you more than a day, you might want to put your windows up before you start, because yeah, you need a battery to make that work. And I don't know, you guys know what I'm saying. So it's been a couple hours. Had to do a little bit of running around. We are finally at a point where I can give you an update. Got the cylinder head back on the car. Everything's cleaned off underneath. Gasket's on. Just put the new head studs in. Did the torque sequence, which is a total pain in the ass. I went off the torque sequence that I found on DSM tuners, which was similar to the one I did back in the day. You look straight down, you can see the paint marks everywhere. So anyway, now I'm going to go back and start reconnecting vacuum lines in the back by the intake manifold. I'm going to start putting some hoses back on where they belong and just work my way through everything until I get to the thermostat housing. Before I do all that, I'm just going to lay the valve cover across the top as to make sure I don't drop anything down in there. Also, I did put a little extra oil across all of my cam lobes and bearing surfaces, just because, in case anything was sitting on them. Hopefully it'll wash down if there's any dust or anything on it. And before I start this thing up, I'm going to give it a full oil change. I got a little extra oil, so I'm going to run a quick oil change through it. I'm going to pour some into it and drain it straight out the bottom of the pan, then put the plug in, new filter, and go from there. So I'm going to get after it, guys. It's been quite a while since I've done an update. So far, whew, it's been a long one. Over here, I've got all the timing belt stuff put back on. I've got the timing cover up to the upper timing cover, ready to roll. Timing belt went on perfectly fine, nice and easy, nothing crazy. Just been putting all the bolts back in the cover. I've got the injectors back in, the fuel rail back in. I've got basically every plug in the backside hooked back up. I have to hook up some vacuum lines up there, spark plugs, plug wires, vacuum hose for the fuel pressure regulator, the fuel hose going into the line, or into the rail rather. A couple other pieces of plumbing have to get done for the thermostat and coolant lines. But other than that, I'm kicking some butt. A lot of the stuff's knocked out. Manifold's got to go back on, the exhaust does. I got to clean that off with some brake parts cleaner because it's got PB Blaster and oil all over it. But yeah, we're making some serious headway. This is Hey guys, due to the time crunch, I had to kind of haul ass through the rest of this, get it plugged back in and get her lit up. But here we are. She's fired up. Sounds great. I'm gonna let it go through a heat cycle, keep an eye on my monitoring stuff, and I will be back to you guys in a few minutes. Well guys, it was a crazy weekend. Well, not weekend. I did this project. I started Monday morning. I finished. It's Wednesday around 2:15, 2:30. Took me about 20 hours to take the head off, take all the timing components and balance shaft stuff off, replace all of it, get it all put back together, the connections made everywhere, all the plugs back in, fluids, and fire this thing up. Boy, was it a lot of work. Now, if you got a head gasket failure and you have to do this job, it's totally doable. It's not the end of the world. Don't be scared. Just take some photos, take some time, label some stuff, and you'll be good to go. I mean, if I can do this in my driveway in my house, then you should be able to do this in your driveway at your house. I mean, the majority of the time I was using my ratcheting wrenches, a socket set, a basic socket set, and I used some razor blades and some Brillo pads to clean off the old gasket. I mean, you really don't need the whole world of tools that's available to you. One thing you definitely need to get is the Mitsubishi timing tensioner tool and the pulley tool, and that stuff really helps out a lot. But as you can see, and I'm sorry guys, I know I jumped around so much in this. It was a time crunch. I actually took a job as an executive chef at a very successful restaurant. Yes, I'm a cook. I do mechanic work on the side. But I've only got 2 days to do this, and I actually got to get around right now and get ready to go to work and prep for my crazy weekend, because upstate New York has just reopened and we're allowed to sit people inside again. So back to the craziness, I guess, right? So if you stuck with it, guys, thanks for watching all the clips. I'm sorry I didn't go more in depth with this job, this process. If you're in the middle of doing yours and you have any questions or want to know how I did something that I didn't cover in the video, just shoot me an email, todaysprojectguide@gmail.com. Feel free to drop a comment down below. A lot of things, I mean, this is my first 7-bolt head gasket job. We did them on a 6-bolt before, a couple of 6 bolts. It's really the same thing. So now we're going to work on something else with this car, and that's going to be in the next video. I've actually got everything blueprinted, and I've started to put some of the stuff together for it, so stay tuned. You guys are going to want to see it if you're having issues with your cooling in the front end. I did this project before I decided to do the head gasket, so I've got some stuff taken care of upstairs, some stuff built, and it's starting to come out pretty good. So I'm going to show you guys my venture for front end cooling, and hopefully you enjoy it. Maybe it'll give you guys a couple ideas. But anyway, guys, it's been great. Thanks for dragging along with me. Sorry it wasn't as informative or as interesting as it could have been. But again, time crunches in life. What can you do, you know? So thanks again, guys. Hope you're all staying safe. Hope you enjoyed watching me through my trouble today and yesterday and the day before. So until next time, you guys take care, be safe, and we'll see you right here again at Today's Project Guide. Thanks for watching, guys.